Imagine loving your husband, trusting him, standing beside him as the perfect wife, while secretly recording the moment he spoke freely to his mistress, revealing the truth he never thought you would hear. Imagine hearing the man you built your life around laugh, confess, and expose secrets he believed were buried forever, not knowing the quiet woman beside him was capturing every word. That night I stopped being the dutiful wife and became the person he never expected. What you're about to hear is going to shock you. Kindly hit the subscribe button and let me know where you are watching from. Stay with me because the final twist is something nobody could have predicted, not even my husband Harrison Blake. This is the story of Nadine Blake, and it is the story of how a woman everyone dismissed as the perfect obedient wife became the most dangerous person in Chicago. This story will teach you a powerful lesson. Never underestimate someone based on their silence. Never assume the person standing beside you smiling is less intelligent than you. And never, ever speak freely in front of someone you have dismissed as insignificant. I was 28 years old when I married Harrison Blake, heir to the Blake family empire, the most powerful organized crime syndicate in Chicago, and I thought I was the luckiest woman alive. I thought I had won some cosmic lottery. I thought my life was going to be perfect, beautiful, safe, like something out of a romance novel where the dangerous man falls for the ordinary girl and protects her from the world. I was wrong about everything. Harrison was beautiful. That was the first thing everyone noticed about him. 6'3". Dark hair that fell just perfectly across his forehead, green eyes that could look tender one moment and deadly the next, a smile that made you feel like you were the only person in the room, the only person who mattered, the only person he would ever want. He pursued me for 6 months before I agreed to marry him, showed up at the cafe where I worked as a manager, sent flowers to my apartment, took me to dinners at restaurants I could not afford, treated me like I was precious, like I was special, like I was worth the effort. My friends warned me, told me men like Harrison Blake did not marry girls like me. Baristas from the South Side, daughters of factory workers, women with student loans and second-hand furniture, they told me he was using me, that he would get bored, that I would end up hurt. But I did not listen. I was in love. I was 27 and tired of struggling. I was ready to believe that fairy tales could happen to girls like me, so when Harrison proposed, when he got down on one knee in front of his entire family at a restaurant overlooking Lake Michigan, when he slipped a 5-carat diamond on my finger and promised to love me forever, I said yes. I said yes without hesitation, without doubt, without understanding what I was agreeing to. The wedding was perfect, 300 guests, a cathedral in downtown Chicago. A reception at the most expensive hotel in the city. I wore a dress that cost more than my car, walked down an aisle covered in white roses, promised to love and honor and obey the man who looked at me like I was everything he had ever wanted. Harrison's mother, Beatrice Blake, kissed my cheek and told me I was family now. His sister Deborah hugged me and whispered that I was good for him, and his underboss, a man named Terry Morrison, stood beside Harrison as best man, watching me with dark, calculating eyes that made me feel like I was being assessed, evaluated, judged. The first year of marriage was exactly what I expected. Harrison was attentive, generous, affectionate. He bought me clothes, jewelry, a new car, moved me into a penthouse overlooking the city, gave me credit cards with no limits, and told me to buy whatever I wanted, whatever made me happy, whatever reminded me that I was his wife, his queen, his most precious possession. I threw dinner parties for his associates, smiled at his mother during weekly family meals, played the role of perfect Mafia wife, the kind who asked no questions, who kept no secrets except the family's secrets, who understood that her job was to look beautiful, be supportive, and never interfere with business. But I started noticing things, small things at first, the way Harrison would check his phone constantly during dinner, the way he would disappear for hours without explanation, the way he would come home smelling like perfume that was not mine, lighter, sweeter, younger. When I asked him about it, he would laugh, pull me into his arms, kiss my forehead and tell me I was being paranoid, that he loved me, that I was the only woman he wanted, that I needed to trust him, to stop questioning him, to remember my place. And I believed him. I wanted to believe him. I needed to believe him because the alternative was too painful, too humiliating, too devastating to accept. So I smiled and nodded and played the dutiful wife while something inside me started to crack, started to break, started to understand that maybe my friends had been right all along. The real revelation came 14 months into our marriage. I was supposed to be in Miami with my sister Kathy for her bachelorette party, but the flight got cancelled. Storms, they said. Airport shut down. Everyone stranded. So I came home early, took a cab from O'Hare back to our penthouse, used my key to open the door quietly because I wanted to surprise Harrison, wanted to see the look on his face when I walked in unexpectedly. I heard them before I saw them. Voices drifting from our bedroom. Harrison's voice, low and rough and intimate, and another voice, female, young, laughing at something he said. I should have walked away, should have left, should have given him the chance to explain. But something made me stop at the bedroom door. Something made me listen. Something made me pull out my phone and start recording. "You are so much more fun than her," the female voice said, and I recognized it immediately. Charlotte read. Harrison's 22-year-old secretary, the girl he hired 6 months ago, the girl who called me Mrs. Blake with respect in her voice, the girl I trusted, the girl I invited to our home for dinner parties. Nadine is, Harrison paused, and I could picture him searching for the right word. Suitable. She is exactly what I needed her to be. Quiet, obedient, grateful. She plays her role perfectly. But you are what I want. You are exciting, unpredictable, alive. The bedroom door was slightly open. I could see them through the crack. Harrison sitting on the edge of our bed, the one we shared, the one where he promised to love only me, and Charlotte standing between his legs, his hands on her waist, her fingers in his hair. "How much longer do we have to pretend?" Charlotte asked. "How much longer do I have to watch you play loving husband while I am just your secretary, just your secret, just the woman you sneak around with?" "Not much longer," Harrison said, pulling her closer. "I am working on it. Working on finding a way to end this marriage without causing problems with the family. My mother likes Nadine, thinks she is good for my image. Stable, respectable, exactly what a man in my position needs. But once I figure out how to manage the optics, once I can spin it the right way, we can be together. Really together. No more hiding." "And what about her?" Charlotte asked. "What happens to Nadine when you are done with her?" Harrison shrugged, and I saw it, saw the casual dismissal, saw the complete lack of concern. She goes back to her little life, back to the South Side, back to working in cafes or whatever she did before me. She signed a prenup. She gets nothing, maybe $50,000 as a parting gift, enough to make me look generous, not enough to matter. "You are terrible," Charlotte said, but she was smiling when she said it. She was kissing him when she said it. She was unbuttoning his shirt when she said it. "I am practical," Harrison corrected, and I watched as he pulled her onto the bed, onto our bed, into the space that was supposed to be sacred, supposed to be ours, supposed to mean something. I recorded 3 minutes of footage before I backed away, before I left the penthouse as quietly as I had entered, before I walked to the parking garage and sat in my car and stared at my phone screen and felt my entire world collapse. Where are you watching from right now? Are you feeling what she felt? That moment when everything you believed about your life turns out to be a lie. Hit subscribe because this story is just getting started, because Nadine is about to become someone her husband never expected. I drove to my sister Kathy's apartment. The flight had not been cancelled. I had lied about that. Had told Harrison I was going to Miami when really I just needed space, needed time away from the performance, needed a weekend to remember who I was before I became Mrs. Harrison Blake. Kathy took one look at my face and knew something was wrong. She poured wine, sat me on her couch and waited, and I showed her the video, showed her my husband with his secretary, showed her the casual way he discussed discarding me, showed her everything. "That son of a bitch," Kathy said, her voice shaking with rage. "That absolute son of a bitch. You need to leave him. You need to divorce him. You need to take him for everything he has." "I cannot," I said, and I meant it. "I signed a prenup, ironclad apparently. I get nothing if I leave. $50,000 if I am lucky. I have no income, no savings. I gave up my job when we got married. I have nothing without him." "Then we make sure you have something," Kathy said. "We make sure that when you leave with enough to destroy him." "But how?" I asked. "How do I do that? He is Harrison Blake. He has lawyers. He has money. He has power. I am just his wife. Just the woman he is planning to discard." "You have something he does not expect," Kathy said, leaning forward. "You have access. You have trust. You have the ability to walk through his world invisible because he thinks you are too stupid to understand what you are seeing, too obedient to question what he does, too grateful to ever betray him. So we use that. We document everything. We build a case. And when you are ready, when you have enough evidence, you burn his entire world to the ground." I stared at my sister, at this woman who worked as a paralegal for a corporate law firm, who understood contracts and evidence and legal strategy, and I felt something shift inside me. Something that had been broken started to heal. Something that had been afraid started to get angry. "Teach me," I said. "Teach me how to do this." And she did. Over the next 6 months, Kathy taught me everything, taught me how to hide recording devices, taught me how to access Harrison's computer without leaving traces, taught me how to photograph documents, taught me how to build a case that would not just end my marriage, but destroy Harrison's empire. I went home to the penthouse the next day, walked in like nothing had happened, smiled at Harrison when he asked about my weekend, told him Miami was fun, told him I missed him, told him I loved him, and I watched his face, watched him lie to me, watched him pretend to be the devoted husband while he was planning my disposal. And I played my role perfectly. I was the dutiful wife, the supportive partner, the woman who asked no questions and made no demands. But now I was something else too. I was a spy, a documenter, a woman building the evidence that would destroy the man who thought I was too insignificant to matter. I started small, recording conversations when Harrison talked business in our home, photographing documents he left in his study, noting names and dates and details about shipments and payments and deals. I did not understand most of it at first, but Kathy helped me, explained what I was seeing, told me what mattered, what would hold up in court, what could be used against him. Harrison never suspected. Why would he? I was Nadine, quiet, obedient, grateful Nadine. The wife who smiled and nodded and never caused problems. The wife who was so lucky to be married to him, so desperate to keep him, so willing to overlook anything as long as she got to stay in the penthouse, stay in the life, stay Mrs. Harrison Blake. But I started noticing other things too, started seeing the business more clearly, started understanding that Harrison was not just cheating on me with Charlotte, he was cheating on the family, skimming from shipments, inflating expenses, redirecting profits into accounts only he controlled, stealing from his own organization, from his mother, from Terry, from everyone who trusted him. The recording devices became my constant companions. I hid a voice-activated recorder in Harrison's car, placed tiny cameras in his office disguised as decorative items, installed software on his computer that logged every keystroke, every email, every search. I became a professional spy in my own home, documenting my husband's betrayal with the precision of someone building a legal case. Because that is exactly what I was doing. I was building a case not just for divorce, not just for revenge, but for destruction. Complete and total destruction of everything Harrison thought was untouchable. I documented Charlotte's visits to our penthouse, recorded Harrison on the phone making plans with Amanda, photographed hotel receipts and restaurant bills, tracked his credit card statements and found payments to jewelry stores for gifts I never received, to apartment rentals for women whose names I did not recognize, to a lifestyle of infidelity that was staggering in its scope and audacity. Harrison was not just cheating, he was living a parallel life. Multiple parallel lives, actually. He had Charlotte convinced she was his only mistress, had Amanda believing they were in love, had Jessica thinking he was going to leave his family for her. He was lying to everyone, including me, including his family, including himself. And I documented all of it, photographed bank statements, recorded phone calls, tracked payments, built a case that was not just about infidelity, not just about betrayal, but about fraud, about theft, about crimes that would send Harrison to prison for decades if the right people saw the evidence. The affair with Charlotte escalated. I watched through hidden cameras as she became more demanding, more possessive, more insistent that Harrison leave me, and I watched Harrison promise her things he had no intention of delivering, watched him lie to her the way he lied to me, watched him manipulate her with the same techniques he used on everyone. Charlotte started showing up at family events, playing the devoted secretary, and I would smile at her, thank her for her hard work, compliment her dress. All while knowing that hours earlier she had been in my bed with my husband, all while recording every interaction, every look, every moment that proved their relationship was more than professional. Harrison's mother Beatrice started making comments about grandchildren, about how long Harrison and I had been married, about when we were going to start a family, and Harrison would squeeze my hand under the table, smile at his mother, promise that we were trying, that it would happen soon, that we wanted nothing more than to give her grandchildren. But in private, Harrison had made it clear that children were not part of his plan. At least not with me. He had told me to stay on birth control, had said we needed to wait until his position in the family was more secure, until the business was more stable, until we had been married longer, always moving the goalpost, always finding reasons to delay. I realized with cold clarity that Harrison never intended to have children with me, that I was a placeholder, a temporary wife, someone to provide respectability until he figured out how to replace me with someone he actually wanted, probably Charlotte, probably one of his mistresses who was younger, more exciting, more worthy of carrying his legacy. The realization did not hurt as much as it should have. I was beyond hurt, beyond pain, beyond the emotional devastation that should have accompanied discovering my husband's complete disregard for our marriage. I was in documentation mode, in evidence-gathering mode, in destruction preparation mode, and feelings, messy, complicated feelings, had no place in that process. I started tracking Harrison's movements more carefully, using location sharing on his phone that he forgot I had access to, following him sometimes when he said he had business meetings, watching from a distance as he met Charlotte at hotels, met Amanda at restaurants, met Jessica at apartments I did not know he owned. Each affair had its own pattern, its own schedule, its own set of lies Harrison told to make it work. Charlotte got weekday afternoons when I thought he was at the office. Amanda got Friday nights when he told me he had family business. Jessica got weekends when he claimed to be traveling for work. Harrison had created an entire architecture of deception, a complex system of lies and alibis and cover stories. And he maintained it with the same attention to detail he brought to his criminal enterprise. He was good at this, practiced at this, had probably been doing this long before he met me. I found evidence of previous affairs too, women from before our marriage, during our engagement, even during our honeymoon. Harrison had been texting someone named Sophia while we were in Bali, while I thought we were building our life together, while I believed I was special, chosen, loved. The betrayal was so comprehensive, so absolute, so complete that it became almost abstract. It was not about me personally. It was not about me being inadequate or undesirable. It was about Harrison being fundamentally incapable of fidelity, incapable of honesty, incapable of seeing any relationship as anything other than a transaction, a performance, a means to an end. And that realization, strangely, made it easier, made the documentation process less personal, made me more focused, more determined, more willing to do whatever it took to bring him down, because I understood that this was not about saving our marriage. This was not about fixing what was broken. This was about justice, about consequences, about making sure that Harrison's pattern of using and discarding people finally caught up with him. Kathy helped me organize the evidence, create timelines, cross-reference documents, build a narrative that would be undeniable, irrefutable, impossible to explain away. We worked on it for hours every week, treating it like a legal case. Because that is what it was. We were building the case that would destroy Harrison Blake. I also started documenting the financial crimes more carefully. Harrison had gotten sloppy, arrogant, so certain that no one was paying attention that he left trails. He would transfer money from family accounts to his personal accounts, then move it again to offshore accounts he thought were untraceable. He would inflate invoices, report shipments that never happened, claim expenses that were personal purchases, and he did it all using the family's accounting systems, using access he had because everyone trusted him. I photographed every document, every bank statement, every transfer record. I hacked into his computer. It was easy, actually. His password was our wedding date, how ironic. And I downloaded files, emails, spreadsheets, everything that proved what he was doing. Harrison had stolen $12 million over 2 years. $12 million that should have gone to the family, to the organization, to the people who trusted him, and he spent it on mistresses, on apartments, on jewelry and cars and trips, on maintaining the lie that he was someone worth loving, someone worth choosing, someone worth anything at all. And I documented every dollar, tracked every transaction, built a financial case that would be impossible to deny, impossible to explain, impossible to survive. But I needed more. I needed to make sure that when I finally moved, when I finally revealed what I knew, Harrison would not just lose his position, would not just lose his marriage, would not just lose his money. I needed him to lose everything. His freedom, his reputation, his future, everything. So I started thinking about criminal charges. Federal charges, the kind that would send Harrison to prison, not to family justice, not to organizational consequences, but to actual legal prison where his name and his connections would not protect him. Tax evasion, that was the obvious one. Harrison was spending money he was not reporting, buying assets in cash, living a lifestyle that did not match his declared income. Money laundering, another possibility. Harrison was moving money through complex transactions designed to hide its origin, fraud, embezzlement, conspiracy. The list grew as I researched, as I understood what I was looking at, as I realized that Harrison's crimes went far beyond cheating on his wife. I needed help, though. I needed someone who understood the legal system, who could tell me what evidence would hold up in court, what charges would stick, what prosecution would be interested in. So I reached out to a lawyer, not a divorce lawyer, a criminal defense attorney, someone who had experience with organized crime cases, someone who would understand what I was offering. Her name was Janet Morrison, no relation to Terry, and she took one look at my evidence and told me I had enough to put Harrison away for 20 years, maybe more, if we presented it correctly, if we found the right prosecutor, if we moved carefully. But she also warned me, told me that going after Harrison criminally meant putting myself at risk, meant potentially testifying, meant making enemies in the family, meant that even with Terry's protection I might not be safe, told me I needed to think carefully about whether revenge was worth my life. I thought about it, considered the risks, weighed the dangers, and I decided that yes, it was worth it, not for revenge, not for spite, not for anger, but for justice, for consequences, for making sure that Harrison's pattern of destruction finally stopped, that he could not do this to anyone else, that his next wife, his next mistress, his next victim would be spared what I endured. Janet helped me organize the evidence in a way that prosecutors would understand, helped me identify which documents were most damning, which recordings were most clear, which witnesses would be most credible, and together we built a criminal case that was separate from the family case, that was parallel to my divorce, that was designed to ensure Harrison faced consequences from every angle. And then I waited for the right moment, waited for Harrison to feel secure, waited for him to believe that he had gotten away with everything, waited for him to drop his guard completely, because I wanted him to be surprised, wanted him to be unprepared, wanted him to understand that the woman he dismissed as insignificant was the architect of his destruction. Charlotte was not the only affair either. I discovered that quickly. There was Amanda, a cocktail waitress at a club Harrison owned. There was Jessica, the daughter of a rival family. There was Sophia and Kennedy, and at least 3 others whose names I never learned. Harrison was not just unfaithful. He was compulsive, pathological, incapable of staying loyal to anyone, including the organization he was supposed to lead. I recorded it all, every affair, every lie, every moment of betrayal. I became obsessed with documenting his crimes, with building my case, with preparing for the moment when I would finally reveal what I knew, when I would finally stop playing the dutiful wife and become his worst nightmare. 6 months after I started recording, 6 months after I discovered Charlotte in my bed, 6 months after I became someone Harrison did not recognize, I had enough evidence to destroy him legally, enough documentation to turn him into federal authorities, enough ammunition to end his marriage, his business, his freedom, everything he thought was untouchable. But I did not move yet. I waited, I planned, I prepared, because I wanted more than just to hurt Harrison. I wanted him to understand what he had done, wanted him to see that the woman he dismissed as insignificant was the one who destroyed him, wanted him to live with that knowledge for the rest of his life. I started making copies, storing evidence in secure locations, safe deposit boxes under fake names, cloud storage accounts Harrison could not trace, physical drives hidden in places he would never look. I made sure that even if something happened to me, even if Harrison discovered what I was doing, the evidence would survive, would surface, would destroy him. And then I did something that surprised even me. I reached out to Terry Morrison, Harrison's underboss, the man who had watched me with calculating eyes at my wedding, the man who I suspected knew more than he let on, the man who might be willing to help me if I gave him the right incentive. I called him from a burner phone, asked to meet in private, waited at a coffee shop in a neighborhood where no one would recognize either of us, and when Terry arrived, when he sat across from me with questions in his dark eyes, I slid a folder across the table. "What is this?" he asked, his voice careful, neutral, giving nothing away. "Evidence," I said, Evidence that Harrison has been stealing from the family for at least 2 years. Skimming from shipments, inflating expenses, redirecting profits, he has taken approximately $12 million that should have gone to the organization. $12 million he thought no one would notice. Terry opened the folder, read through the documents. His face remaining completely neutral, completely controlled, giving me no indication of what he was thinking, what he was feeling, what he planned to do. "Why are you showing me this?" he asked finally. "Why are you betraying your husband?" "Because he betrayed me first," I said, "and because he is betraying all of you, and because when I leave him, when I divorce him, I want to make sure he has nothing left, no money, no power, no organization to fall back on. I want him destroyed, and I need your help to do it." Terry leaned back, studied me with those calculating eyes, and I saw the moment he decided, the moment he chose to believe me, the moment he realized that quiet, obedient Nadine was more dangerous than anyone suspected. "What do you want?" he asked. "I want the family to know what Harrison has done," I said. "I want them to remove him from power. I want his mother to understand that her son is not the man she thinks he is, and I want immunity. I want protection. I want to make sure that when this is over, when Harrison is finished, the organization does not come after me for what I know, for what I have seen, for the role I played in bringing him down." Terry was quiet for a long moment, then he nodded. "Give me everything you have, every document, every recording, every piece of evidence. And I will make sure it gets to the right people. I will make sure Harrison faces justice, both from the family and from the law. And I will make sure you are protected." "Why would you help me?" I asked. "Why would you betray Harrison?" "Because loyalty is earned," Terry said, "and Harrison stopped earning it the moment he started stealing from people who trusted him. And because you are smarter than he ever gave you credit for, and because, frankly, I have been waiting for someone to take him down. I just never expected it would be his wife." I gave Terry copies of everything, watched him load the evidence into a briefcase, watched him shake my hand like we were business partners, like we were allies, like we were two people who understood that sometimes the only way to get justice is to take it yourself. And then I went home, went back to the penthouse, went back to playing the dutiful wife because I had one more performance to give, one more role to play, one more moment where Harrison would look at me and see nothing, suspect nothing, understand nothing. Are you still with me? Because this is where everything changes. This is where the dutiful wife becomes the destroying angel. Hit subscribe if you want to see how this ends. 3 weeks after I gave Terry the evidence, 3 weeks after I set Harrison's destruction in motion, 3 weeks after I became something more than just Mrs. Blake. Harrison came home early from a business meeting, his face tight with tension, his movements sharp with barely controlled rage. "We need to talk," he said, and I felt my heart rate spike, felt the fear creep in, felt the certainty that he knew, that someone had told him, that I had been discovered. "Of course," I said, keeping my voice calm, steady, giving nothing away what is wrong. "There is going to be a family meeting tomorrow," Harrison said, sitting on the couch, his hands gripping his knees. "My mother has called everyone together. Something about irregularities in the accounts. Someone has been asking questions, making accusations. I do not know who or why, but this is serious. This could destroy everything I have built." I sat beside him, placed my hand on his arm, played the concerned wife. "What kind of accusations?" "Financial impropriety," Harrison said, skimming theft. "They are saying I have been stealing from the family, which is insane, which is impossible to prove, which has to be someone trying to undermine me, trying to take my position." "Is it true?" I asked, keeping my voice soft, non-judgmental, just curious. Harrison looked at me and I saw it, saw the calculation, saw him deciding whether to tell me the truth or maintain the lie. And he chose the lie. "Of course, it is not true." He said, "I would never steal from my family, never betray their trust. Someone is setting me up, and I need to figure out who before tomorrow's meeting." I nodded, squeezed his arm, told him I believed him, told him we would get through this, told him I was on his side, and I watched relief flood his face. Watched him relax because he believed I was still his loyal wife, still his obedient partner, still too stupid to see through his lies. That night I lay beside him in bed, listened to him sleep, and I felt nothing, no love, no sympathy, no regret. Just cold satisfaction that tomorrow everything would come crashing down, that tomorrow Harrison would finally understand what it felt like to lose everything. The family meeting was held at Beatrice Blake's estate, a massive mansion in the suburbs that looked like something out of a Gothic novel. All stone and iron gates and windows that seemed to watch you. I was not supposed to attend. Family meetings were for members only. Wives were excluded. But Harrison asked me to come, said he needed support, needed someone in his corner, needed me. We walked into the library where the family gathered, Beatrice sitting at the head of a long table, Terry standing beside her with a briefcase I recognized, Deborah and the other family members arranged around the room, all watching Harrison with expressions that ranged from concern to suspicion to outright hostility. "Sit down, Harrison," Beatrice said, her voice cold, authoritative, the voice of a woman who had ruled this family for 40 years and did not tolerate disrespect or theft. Harrison sat, and I stood behind him, the dutiful wife, the supportive partner. The woman no one paid attention to because I was just decoration, just a pretty face, just Harrison's insignificant wife. "We have received some disturbing information," Beatrice continued. "Allegations that you have been stealing from the family, redirecting profits, inflating expenses, enriching yourself at our expense. These are serious accusations, Harrison, and if they are true, there will be consequences." "They are not true," Harrison said, his voice strong, confident. "This is a setup. Someone is trying to undermine me, trying to take my position. I have been loyal to this family my entire life. I would never betray that trust." "Terry," Beatrice said, "show him the evidence." Terry opened the briefcase, began laying out documents on the table, bank statements, transfer records, shipping manifests, all the evidence I had collected, all the proof of Harrison's theft, all the documentation of his betrayal, and I watched Harrison's face change, watched the confidence drain away, watched understanding and fear replace it. "Where did you get this?" Harrison asked, his voice shaking. "Who gave you this?" "Does it matter?" Beatrice asked. "Is it true? Did you steal $12 million from this family?" Harrison looked at the documents, looked at his mother, looked at Terry, and I saw the moment he broke. The moment he realized there was no denying it, no explaining it away, no escaping what he had done. "I can explain," he started, but Beatrice cut him off. "There is no explanation that makes this acceptable," she said. "You stole from your family, from the people who trusted you, who raised you, who gave you everything, and for what? For money, for greed, for your own selfish desires." "It was not just for money," Terry said, his voice quiet but sharp, and he pulled out another folder, this one containing photos, surveillance images of Harrison with Charlotte, with Amanda, with Jessica, with all the women he thought no one knew about. He has been living a double life. Triple life, really, spending family money on his affairs, on apartments for his mistresses, on a lifestyle he thought he could hide. Beatrice looked at the photos, her face hardening, her eyes cold, and then she looked at me. Really looked at me for the first time, and I saw understanding dawn. "Nadine," she said, "did you know about this?" "Yes," I said, my voice steady, calm. "I have known for months." "And you said nothing?" Beatrice asked. "You did not come to me, did not tell the family, did not warn us what Harrison was doing?" "I was gathering evidence," I said, making sure I had proof, making sure that when I finally spoke up, no one could deny what he had done. "I am sorry it took so long. I am sorry I did not come forward sooner. But I needed to be certain, needed to document everything, needed to make sure justice was served." Beatrice stared at me, and I could not read her expression. Could not tell if she was angry or impressed or both. Then she turned back to Harrison. "You married a smart woman," she said, "smarter than you deserved, and she brought you down using your own arrogance against you." Harrison looked at me then, really looked at me, and I saw betrayal in his eyes, saw shock, saw the realization that I was not who he thought I was, had never been who he thought I was. "You did this," he said. "You gave them the evidence. You destroyed me." "You destroyed yourself," I corrected. "I just documented it." The room was silent, everyone watching, everyone waiting to see what Beatrice would do, what punishment would fit Harrison's crimes. "You are removed from all family business," Beatrice said finally, effective immediately. "You will repay every dollar you stole. You will sell your assets, liquidate your accounts. You will give back everything you took, and if you cannot repay it all, you will work for this family without pay until the debt is settled. You are no longer my heir. No longer in line to lead this organization. You are barely my son." "And what about me?" Harrison asked. "What happens to me?" "You survive," Beatrice said, "if you are lucky, if you do what I tell you. If you accept this punishment without fighting it, you survive, but your life as you knew it is over, your position is over, your power is over. Everything you thought you had is gone." Harrison slumped in his chair, and I felt nothing, no pity, no sympathy, no regret. "Nadine," Beatrice said, turning to me, "you will have whatever you need to divorce my son, lawyers, money, protection. You will not be bound by the prenup. You will receive a fair settlement, and you will have the family's gratitude for bringing this to our attention." "Thank you," I said, and I meant it. "And one more thing," Beatrice said, her eyes sharp, calculating. "You have a good head for business, for strategy, for seeing what others miss. If you ever want a position in this family, a real position, not just as someone's wife, you let me know." I nodded, understanding what she was offering, understanding that in bringing down Harrison I had proven myself worthy, proven myself capable, proven myself dangerous in ways the family respected. "I want a divorce," I said, turning to Harrison. "I want it finalized as quickly as possible. I want you out of the penthouse, out of my life, out of every space we shared." "You cannot leave me," Harrison said, his voice desperate now, broken. "I love you. I made mistakes, but I love you." "You do not love me," I said. "You love what I represented, the perfect wife, the obedient partner, the woman who made you look stable and respectable. But you never loved me. You never even saw me. You dismissed me as insignificant, and that was your biggest mistake." Harrison tried to stand, tried to reach for me, but Terry stepped between us, his hand on Harrison's shoulder, pushing him back down. "Do not touch her," Terry said. "Do not speak to her. Do not even look at her. You lost that right when you betrayed her." Harrison collapsed back into the chair, and I turned and walked out of that library, walked out of that mansion. Walked away from my marriage and my old life and the woman I used to be. 6 months later, I was standing in my new apartment, smaller than the penthouse but mine. Paid for with the settlement Beatrice insisted Harrison provide, $2 million, enough to start over, enough to build a new life, enough to prove that leaving did not mean losing everything. The divorce was finalized, quick, brutal. Harrison signed everything without fighting because he had no power left, no leverage, nothing to negotiate with. I kept my distance from the family, did not take Beatrice up on her offer of a position, did not want to stay connected to that world, to those people, to the life that had cost me so much. But I did keep in touch with Terry. He checked on me occasionally, made sure I was safe, made sure Harrison stayed away, made sure the family honored their promise of protection. One afternoon, Terry stopped by my apartment, brought coffee, sat on my couch and told me something that made my blood run cold. "Harrison is not doing well," he said. "He is drinking, using, spiraling. He keeps talking about you, about how you destroyed him, about how he lost everything because of you." "Is he dangerous?" I asked. "Should I be worried?" "I do not think so," Terry said. "But I wanted you to know, wanted you to be aware, wanted you to be careful." I nodded, understanding that even though Harrison had lost everything, even though he was broken and defeated, he was still dangerous, still capable of violence, still angry enough to want revenge. 2 weeks after Terry's visit, Harrison showed up at my apartment. I saw him through the window, pacing outside, looking up at my building, and I called Terry immediately, told him Harrison was here, told him I was scared. "Stay inside," Terry said. "Lock your doors. I am sending someone. Do not open the door for anyone except me." I waited, watched Harrison pace, watched him pull out his phone, and then my phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number, Harrison's number. "I need to talk to you," it said. "Please, just give me 5 minutes. I need to explain. I need to apologize. I need you to understand." I did not respond, did not engage, just watched him through the window until Terry arrived with 2 other men, watched them approach Harrison, watched them talk to him, watched Harrison's shoulders slump in defeat. They escorted him away, and Terry came up to my apartment, made sure I was okay, made sure I felt safe. "He is not going to stop," Terry said. "He is obsessed. He blames you for everything. He cannot accept that he destroyed himself." "What should I do?" I asked. "You could get a restraining order," Terry said. "Or you could disappear, move somewhere Harrison cannot find you, start completely over." "I do not want to run," I said. "I do not want to spend my life looking over my shoulder. I want him to leave me alone. I want this to be over." "Then we need to make him understand," Terry said. "Make him accept that you are gone, that his life is over, that pursuing you will only make things worse for him." "How do we do that?" I asked. "We remind him what he has to lose," Terry said. "What little he has left, his freedom, his life. We make it clear that if he comes near you again, if he contacts you, if he even thinks about you, there will be consequences he cannot survive." "And you can do that?" I asked. "I can," Terry said, "and I will." 3 days later, Harrison was arrested, federal charges, tax evasion, fraud, conspiracy. All based on evidence that mysteriously appeared in the right hands, evidence that had nothing to do with the family business, evidence that would send Harrison to prison for 15 years. I watched the news coverage from my apartment, watched Harrison being led away in handcuffs, watched the reporters describe his fall from grace, watched the man who dismissed me as insignificant face the consequences of his arrogance. And I felt it, finally felt it, that cold, sharp satisfaction, that sense of justice, that understanding that I had won completely, absolutely, irrevocably. Terry called me that night, told me Harrison would be in prison for at least a decade, told me I was safe, told me I could finally move on. "Did you plant that evidence?" I asked. "Does it matter?" Terry said. "He is guilty, maybe not of those specific charges, but guilty of enough that this is justice, cosmic balance, karma coming due." "Thank you," I said, and I meant it. "You did this yourself," Terry said. "You documented everything, you built the case. You took down a man twice your size with nothing but patience and intelligence. I just helped finish what you started." We ended the call, and I sat in my apartment in my new life, in the freedom I had fought so hard to claim, and I thought about Harrison, about the man who thought I was too insignificant to matter, too stupid to understand, too grateful to ever betray him. Where are you watching from? Are you feeling what she felt, that moment when justice finally comes? When the person who dismissed you finally understands what they lost? Hit subscribe, because this story has one more chapter, one more twist, one more moment that changes everything. The aftermath of Harrison's arrest was chaotic, brutal, exactly what I expected and worse than I imagined. The news media covered it extensively. Heir to Chicago crime family arrested on federal charges, photographs of Harrison in handcuffs, speculation about what this meant for the Blake organization, interviews with legal experts discussing the evidence, the charges, the likely outcome. I watched it all from my new apartment, the one I moved into immediately after the family meeting, the one Harrison did not know about, the one I paid for with money I had been carefully saving from my settlement, and I felt nothing, no satisfaction, no guilt. Just cold acceptance that this was necessary, that this was justice, that this was what happened when you dismissed someone as insignificant. Harrison tried to contact me multiple times. Calls from jail that I did not accept, letters that I returned unopened, messages through his lawyer that I ignored. He wanted to talk, wanted to explain, wanted me to understand his side, but I had no interest in his side, no interest in his explanations, no interest in anything he had to say. His trial lasted 6 weeks. I did not attend, did not testify. Janet had arranged it so my evidence spoke for itself, so I did not have to face Harrison in court, did not have to see him try to play the victim, try to blame me, try to make this about anything other than his own choices. The prosecution presented my recordings, my photographs, my meticulously organized timeline of his affairs and his theft, and the jury heard Harrison in his own words, heard him dismiss me as insignificant, heard him plan my disposal, heard him brag about his crimes, heard him lie to everyone he claimed to love. Charlotte testified too, given immunity in exchange for her cooperation. She described the affair in detail, admitted that Harrison had promised to leave me, confirmed that he spent family money on her, that he bought her an apartment, that he gave her jewelry worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, jewelry that belonged to the family, that represented generations of Blake wealth, and she cried on the stand, played the victim, claimed Harrison manipulated her too, and maybe that was true. Maybe Harrison manipulated everyone. Maybe that was his only real skill. The verdict came back guilty on all counts: tax evasion, money laundering, fraud, embezzlement, conspiracy. The jury deliberated for 8 hours and found Harrison guilty of everything, and the judge, an older woman with gray hair and steel in her eyes, sentenced him to 15 years in federal prison, with possibility of parole after 10 if he behaved, if he cooperated, if he showed remorse. Harrison stood there as the sentence was read, his face pale, his hands shaking, and he looked around the courtroom. Looked for me even though he had to know I was not there. Looked for anyone who might save him, might offer sympathy, might give him some shred of hope that this was not really happening. But there was no one. Beatrice did not attend, sent Terry instead as a representative of the family. Harrison's sister, Deborah, was there, but she looked relieved, like she was finally free of her brother's shadow, like his arrest liberated her from years of covering for him, protecting him, pretending he was someone worth defending. Terry nodded at the sentence, satisfied, and I heard later that he told Harrison, told him in the holding cell before they transferred him to federal prison, told him that this was what happened when you stole from family, when you betrayed trust, when you underestimated the people around you. Harrison apparently asked about me, asked if I was safe, if I was protected, if the family was taking care of me, and Terry told him yes, told him I was fine, told him I was better off without him, told him to spend his prison time thinking about why his marriage failed, why his life fell apart, why the woman he dismissed destroyed him. I started therapy, needed it, needed someone professional to help me process what I had been through, what I had done, what I had become in order to survive. My therapist, a woman named Dr. Patricia Henderson, listened without judgment, helped me understand that documenting Harrison's crimes did not make me vindictive, that protecting myself did not make me cruel, that choosing to destroy someone who was destroying me was not wrong. It was survival. We worked through my feelings about the marriage, about the betrayal, about the woman I had become, and slowly, over months and then years, I started to heal, started to remember who I was before Harrison, started to build a version of myself that was not defined by my marriage, my divorce, my revenge. I went back to school, finished my business degree, the one I had abandoned when I married Harrison, when he told me I did not need to work, did not need education, just needed to be his wife. I graduated with honors, got a job at a consulting firm, used my experience with the Blake family, my understanding of complex financial crimes, my ability to see patterns others missed, and I was good at it, successful, respected, valued for my intelligence, not dismissed as insignificant. I made new friends, women who did not know about my past, who saw me as Nadine the consultant, not Nadine the Mafia wife, not Nadine the woman who brought down Harrison Blake, just Nadine, just a woman building a life, and it felt good, felt normal, felt like maybe I could be happy again. My relationship with the Blake family became complicated. Beatrice stayed in touch, sent birthday cards, invited me to family events that I politely declined. She respected my boundaries, never pushed, never demanded, just reminded me that if I ever needed anything, if I ever wanted to return to the family in some capacity, the offer stood. Terry became an unlikely friend. We met for coffee occasionally. He updated me on family business, told me Harrison was struggling in prison, told me the organization was thriving without him, told me that removing Harrison had been the best thing for everyone, that his theft and incompetence had been holding them back for years. I asked Terry once if he regretted helping me, if he felt guilty about betraying Harrison, and he looked at me with those dark, calculating eyes and said, "Loyalty is a two-way street. Harrison broke faith first. I just made sure there were consequences." Kathy remained my closest confidant, my sister who had helped me through everything, who had taught me how to document, how to build a case, how to fight back. She got married herself, to a good man, a carpenter named Marcus, and I stood beside her at her wedding, watched her make promises she intended to keep, watched her build a marriage based on honesty and respect and equality, and I was happy for her, genuinely happy, because she deserved it. 5 years after Harrison went to prison, 5 years after I divorced him, 5 years after I became someone new, I received a letter, forwarded through my lawyer, sent from the federal facility where Harrison was serving his sentence. I almost threw it away, almost burned it without reading, but curiosity, that dangerous curiosity, made me open it. "Nadine," he wrote, "I know you probably do not want to hear from me. Probably do not care what I have to say. Probably wish I would just disappear from your life completely. But I need to tell you something. I need you to know something. I need to apologize. I have had 5 years to think about what I did. 5 years to understand how badly I treated you. 5 years to realize that you were the best thing that ever happened to me, and I threw it away because I was arrogant, because I was stupid, because I took you for granted. You were never insignificant. You were never just the dutiful wife. You were always smarter than me, always more capable, always more worthy of respect, and I was too blind to see it, too arrogant to appreciate it, too damaged to deserve it. I destroyed my own life. I know that now. I stole, I cheated, I lied. I betrayed everyone who trusted me, and you documented it all. You took me down using my own crimes against me, and I deserved it. I deserved all of it. The prison, the shame, the loss of everything I thought mattered. But here is what I need you to know. What I have realized sitting in this cell, what keeps me awake at night. I loved you. Really loved you. Not the way I should have, not the way you deserved. But I loved you, and I was too stupid to show it, too arrogant to say it, too broken to act on it. The affairs were not about you being inadequate. They were about me being broken, about me being incapable of accepting love, about me being too damaged to appreciate what I had, and by the time I realized what I was losing, by the time I understood what you meant to me, it was too late. You were gone, and I had no one to blame but myself. I am not asking for forgiveness. I do not deserve it. I am not asking for a second chance. I know that is impossible. I am just asking you to know, to understand, that you won, completely, and that I spend every day regretting what I lost, who I hurt, what I destroyed. You were right about everything. I was a terrible husband, a worse person, a man who did not deserve you. And you were strong enough to walk away, smart enough to take me down, brave enough to start over, and I am proud of you. Even though I have no right to be, even though my pride means nothing, I am proud of you. I hope you are happy. I hope you found someone who treats you the way I should have. I hope you built a life that is everything you deserved, and I hope someday, maybe years from now, you can think of me without hate, without anger, just with the understanding that I was a cautionary tale, a warning about what happens when you take the best thing in your life for granted. I am sorry, I am so sorry, and I will be sorry for the rest of my life, Harrison. I read the letter twice, 3 times, and I felt something unexpected, not forgiveness, not sympathy, but a strange sort of closure. The understanding that Harrison had finally learned what I already knew, that dismissing people, underestimating them, taking them for granted, always comes with a price. I did not write back, did not acknowledge the letter, did not give Harrison the satisfaction of a response. I just filed it away, put it in a box with the divorce papers and the settlement documents and all the other artifacts of a life I used to live. And then I moved on, really moved on. I started dating carefully, slowly. I met a man named Andrew, a teacher, kind, respectful, someone who saw me, really saw me, someone who asked about my day and meant it, someone who treated me like an equal partner, not a possession. We dated for 2 years before he proposed, and when he did, when he got down on one knee and asked me to marry him, I said yes, but this time I said yes with my eyes open, with my boundaries clear, with the understanding that I would never again be the dutiful wife who stayed silent while her husband destroyed her. Andrew and I got married in a small ceremony, just family and close friends, no 300 guests, no cathedral, no performance, just 2 people making promises they intended to keep, and I was happy, genuinely happy, in a way I never was with Harrison. But sometimes late at night I think about that letter, about Harrison's apology, about his claim that he loved me, and I wonder if it was true, if he really did love me and was just too broken to show it, or if even his apology was another manipulation, another attempt to control the narrative, another way to make himself the victim. I will never know, and I have decided that is okay, that some questions do not need answers, that some people do not deserve the energy it takes to figure them out. I think about Charlotte sometimes too, wonder what happened to her after the trial, after she testified, after her role in Harrison's downfall became public. I heard she left Chicago, moved to California, changed her name, tried to start over just like I did. And I hope she learned something, hope she understood that being the other woman is not glamorous, is not exciting, is not worth the price you pay when everything falls apart. The other mistresses scattered too. Amanda disappeared, Jessica went back to her family. The ones whose names I never learned became ghosts, shadows, footnotes in Harrison's story of self-destruction, and I felt nothing for them, no sympathy, no anger, just the understanding that they were victims too, in their own way, victims of Harrison's manipulation, his lies, his inability to see people as anything other than objects to be used. My relationship with Andrew is different from everything I had with Harrison. It is built on honesty, on communication, on the understanding that we are partners, not possessions. He knows everything about my past, about Harrison, about the recording, about the destruction I caused, and he does not judge me for it, does not see me as damaged or vindictive or broken. He sees me as strong, as someone who survived, as someone who fought back when fighting back was the only option. We have conversations about boundaries, about expectations, about what we need from each other. Conversations Harrison would have dismissed as unnecessary, as overcomplicating things, as proof that I was being difficult. But Andrew welcomes them, participates in them, understands that healthy relationships require work, require honesty, require both people to show up and be present and choose each other every day. I told Andrew about the recording devices, about how I documented everything, about the months I spent playing dutiful wife while gathering evidence, and he asked me if I would ever do that again, if I would ever feel the need to document his actions, to build a case against him, and I thought about it, really thought about it, and I told him the truth. I would if I needed to, I said. If you ever gave me reason to believe you were betraying me, if you ever made me feel unsafe or unvalued or dismissed, yes, I would document it. I would protect myself. I would do whatever I needed to do to survive, because I have learned that lesson. I have learned that you can never rely on someone else to protect you. You have to protect yourself. And Andrew nodded, said he understood, said he hoped I would never need to, said he would spend every day proving to me that I was safe, that I was valued, that I was seen, and he has, for 3 years now, he has kept that promise. And I am learning, slowly, to trust again, to believe that not all men are Harrison, that not all relationships are cages, that it is possible to be loved without being possessed. I still have the recordings, all of them, stored in multiple secure locations. I will probably never delete them, never destroy the evidence, because they represent something important. They represent proof that I was not crazy, was not paranoid, was not overreacting. They represent validation that what I experienced was real, that Harrison really did betray me, that my response was justified. Sometimes I wonder if keeping them means I have not fully moved on, if I am still holding on to the past in unhealthy ways, but my therapist says it is okay, says that some people need tangible proof of what they survived, need physical evidence that their experience was real, need to know that if anyone ever questions their story, if anyone ever suggests they exaggerated or misremembered, they have proof, they have documentation, they have the truth preserved in Harrison's own words. 8 years after Harrison went to prison, 8 years after I destroyed him, 8 years after I became someone new, Terry called me, said Harrison was up for parole, said there would be a hearing, said I had the right to attend, to speak, to tell the parole board what Harrison had done, how his crimes affected me, whether I believed he deserved early release. I thought about it, considered whether I wanted to see Harrison again, whether I wanted to give him that power, whether my presence at his parole hearing would give him satisfaction or pain, and I decided to go. Decided I wanted to look him in the eye one more time, wanted him to see who I had become, wanted him to understand that while he was in prison I was thriving, building, living a life he could never touch. The parole hearing was in a small room, institutional, depressing. Harrison sat at a table in his prison uniform, thinner than I remembered, grayer, older, diminished in ways that went beyond the physical, and when I walked in, when he saw me, something in his face crumbled, something broke. Something that had been holding him together fell apart. The parole board asked me to speak, asked me to describe how Harrison's crimes affected me, and I did. I told them about the betrayal, about the theft, about being dismissed as insignificant, about spending months documenting his crimes while playing the dutiful wife, about the day I finally revealed what I knew and watched his world collapse, and I told them that Harrison had not just committed financial crimes, had not just cheated on his wife. He had created a pattern of betrayal and manipulation and destruction that hurt everyone who trusted him. And I did not believe he had changed, did not believe prison had reformed him, did not believe he deserved early release. Harrison tried to speak, tried to apologize, tried to tell the board that he had spent 8 years thinking about what he did, about how he hurt me, about how he destroyed his own life. But I cut him off, told the board that Harrison was very good at apologizing, very skilled at saying what people wanted to hear. But his words meant nothing. His remorse was performance, and releasing him early would be a mistake. The parole board denied his request, said he needed to serve at least 2 more years, said they were not convinced he had fully accepted responsibility for his actions, and I walked out of that hearing feeling vindicated, feeling powerful, feeling like I had won one final time. Harrison caught up with me in the parking lot. The guards allowed him a moment, watched from a distance, and he looked at me with desperate eyes and said, "Please, Nadine, Please tell me how to fix this. Tell me what I need to do to earn your forgiveness." "You cannot fix this," I said, "and I do not forgive you. What you did was unforgivable, and I have moved on. I have built a life without you, and you need to understand that this prison, this punishment, this is what you deserve. This is the consequence of your choices, and no amount of apologies will change that." He looked like I had hit him, looked like my words caused physical pain, and good, I thought, good, let him hurt. Let him understand what it feels like to be dismissed, to be told you do not matter, to be informed that everything you thought you were is worthless. I walked away from Harrison for the final time, got in my car, drove home to Andrew, to my life, to the freedom I had fought so hard to claim, and I felt it, finally felt it completely, that sense of closure, that understanding that I had won, not just legally, not just financially, but emotionally, psychologically. I had survived, I had thrived, I had become someone stronger than the person Harrison tried to make me. This is the end of Nadine Blake's story, the woman who played the dutiful wife while recording her husband's betrayal, the woman who everyone dismissed and no one saw coming, the woman who proved that silence can be strategic, that patience can be powerful, that the most dangerous person in any room is the one everyone underestimates. Thank you for watching, thank you for listening, thank you for staying with Nadine from the beginning to the end. From the dutiful wife to the destroyer to the woman who built a new life from the ashes of her old one. And remember, if someone is treating you like you do not matter, like you are insignificant, like you are too stupid to understand what is happening, start documenting, start recording, start building your case, because the person who dismisses you is the person most vulnerable to being destroyed by you. Stay safe, protect yourself, never accept betrayal. And remember that you are never as powerless as someone wants you to believe. You always have choices, you always have options. You always have the ability to walk away, to fight back, to win. Subscribe and let's keep breathing life into stories that were never meant to stay silent. This story is far from over because there are thousands of women like Nadine, thousands of people who played roles they did not choose, thousands of survivors who documented everything and waited for the right moment to strike. And their stories deserve to be told. Their victories deserve to be celebrated. Their survival deserves to be witnessed. This is the end, but it is also a beginning. The beginning of understanding that you are stronger than you think, smarter than they believe, more dangerous than anyone expects, so use that. Protect yourself, document everything. And when the time comes, when you are ready, strike, leave, win, because you deserve freedom. You deserve respect. You deserve a life where you are valued, not dismissed, where you are seen, not invisible, where you matter. This is the story of how I played the dutiful wife while my mafia boss husband cheated. How I recorded everything. How I documented his crimes. How I brought him down using his own arrogance against him. And this is also the story of how I learned that silence is not weakness, that patience is not passivity, that the person everyone dismisses as insignificant can be the most dangerous person in the room. So tell me, did Harrison really love her? Was his apology real or just another manipulation? Did Nadine do the right thing or should she have left earlier? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if you stayed until the end, subscribe. Subscribe, and let's keep breathing life into stories that were never meant to stay silent. Because this story, this complicated story about betrayal and revenge and justice, it matters. It matters because it shows that you do not have to accept betrayal. You do not have to stay silent. You do not have to play the role someone else wrote for you. Hit subscribe, let me know where you are watching from. Tell me if you have ever been underestimated, if you have ever been dismissed as insignificant, if you have ever had the satisfaction of proving someone wrong. Because these stories, they connect us. They remind us that we are not alone. They show us that survival is possible, that justice is possible, that starting over is possible. This is the end of Nadine Blake's story, the woman who played the dutiful wife while recording her husband's betrayal, the woman who everyone dismissed and no one saw coming, the woman who proved that silence can be strategic, that patience can be powerful, that the most dangerous person in any room is the one everyone underestimates. Thank you for watching, thank you for listening, thank you for staying with Nadine from the beginning to the end. From the dutiful wife to the destroyer to the woman who built a new life from the ashes of her old one. And remember, if someone is treating you like you do not matter, like you are insignificant, like you are too stupid to understand what is happening, start documenting, start recording, start building your case, because the person who dismisses you is the person most vulnerable to being destroyed by you. Stay safe, protect yourself, never accept betrayal. And remember that you are never as powerless as someone wants you to believe. You always have choices. You always have options. You always have the ability to walk away, to fight back, to win. Subscribe and let's keep breathing life into stories that were never meant to stay silent. This story is far from over because there are thousands of women like Nadine, thousands of people who played roles they did not choose. Thousands of survivors who documented everything and waited for the right moment to strike, and their stories deserve to be told. Their victories deserve to be celebrated. Their survival deserves to be witnessed. This is the end, but it is also a beginning. The beginning of understanding that you are stronger than you think, smarter than they believe, more dangerous than anyone expects, so use that. Protect yourself, document everything, and when the time comes, when you are ready, strike, leave, win. Because you deserve freedom. You deserve respect. You deserve a life where you are valued, not dismissed, where you are seen, not invisible, where you matter.